Good evening. Hi, everyone. I'm Cheryl Del Greco from NEWRA. I'm here tonight with Brett Roman from NEWNC. Thanks, everybody, for joining our call. We've got a good lineup of our elected officials tonight to talk about legislation, budgets, all the things that are of concern to everybody. And we'll have a Q&A after each person speaks. But I'd like to introduce Brett Roman from NEWNC.
Good evening, everyone. Pleasure to be here tonight with Cheryl, hosting this meeting. We appreciate you all logging in to attend tonight's meeting. As always, if any of the speakers, if you need to defer to anyone or any other of your staff, please let us know by name of who to unmute, and we'll gladly unmute them for you. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mayor Marty Walsh.
Mayor Walsh, you need to unmute yourself. Oh, maybe I have to unmute you again. Hang on. Unmute.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Brett. Thank you, Cheryl. And I figured this unmute thing out by now, but we're still doing it, but I couldn't unmute myself, so I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone from the North End Residents Association and Restaurant Association, the North End Waterfront Neighborhood Council, everyone for being on. I'm not sure if they're on. I know that Representative Amekowitz might be on, or staff is on. He's in session today. I want to thank the rep for the great work he's done as a rep from the North End, but also as chairman of Ways and Means. Senator Joe Boncore, I saw Joe a minute ago. Thank you, Joe, as well. For Joe's done some good things. We had a transportation bill that went through the other day, and some great things for Boston. City Councilor Lydia Edwards, my partner in City Hall, who's done some great work as well, and we're working on a whole host of issues together. I want to thank you. I have a whole list that I was asked to talk about, so I'll try and be quick. John Romano's on the call. John is a liaison. He's done a great job here in the city. I believe Captain Burton is on as well. Captain Burton, the chief of staff for me, and she's lived in the North End. So thank you, Catherine. And I'll scroll through the screen in a little bit and try and get some other folks. If I miss you, I'll get you in a little bit. First and foremost, I think one of the things that I want to talk a little bit about tonight is COVID-19 and our update on the reopening progress and where we are. The most important thing I think right now for all of us is we all know for the last 4 months, we've gone through a lot with COVID-19. We have lost people we know. We've had people that have had coronavirus that got very sick and then are recovering. We have people that we might know that have coronavirus currently still active here in the city, in the state, in the country. And it's a really tough, terrible pandemic and virus we're dealing with. In Boston, over the last 3 weeks, we've seen a decline, if you will, in the numbers. A little increase last week, but a decrease. So I'll just give you a quick example. The week ending July 6th, our positive rate for coronavirus was 1.9%. The week ending July 13th, our positive rate for coronavirus was 2.5%. It was the first time in about 2 months that we saw a little slight increase in coronavirus. And last week we saw 2.2%. So we're trending in the right direction when it comes to the virus. We're seeing, not many cases, but it's important for us that we stay very consistent in taking care of ourselves with physical distancing, with wearing masks, with washing hands, with cleaning surfaces down. If we want to continue to return back to any type of normalcy, which I don't think we'll get to fully, but it's important for us that we continue to do those things. The North End neighborhood in particular has a cumulative positive rate from the very beginning of 6.9%. And that's from the very beginning. And last week was 1.1%. That's the lowest rate in the city of Boston, which is a good thing to see. We have to stay vigilant on as we move forward. I can talk a little more about the virus as we move forward. Phase 3 of the virus, phase 3 of the reopening, I should say, we started a couple weeks ago. We've revised our outdoor gathering limits to 50 people. The statewide limit's 100. We're keeping it at 50. Guidelines on social distancing and physical distancing and face coverings must be followed. We're also we resumed permitting for low and moderate contact sports and other events. So we're starting to see some activity in our parks. What I mean by that is we've seen Little League playing on our fields, but sports like football are not allowed until phase 3, step 2. But skills in those sports are allowed. So the sports that don't have a lot of contact, we're able to get some of the kids back out and playing, some of the adult softball and things like that. We've expanded our in-person service at City Hall. For a while, we were only open 2 days a week by appointment only. We've increased that to 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. The services still remain by appointment, so anything that you have to do inside the City Hall, we need to have appointments, but we've seen an increase in need to go in and for permitting and things like that. We're still not hosting public or private meetings in any city building. It's something that we still want to be very cautious of and very careful of, and quite honestly, that's really for the safety of the residents and the people of Boston. We're also not opening our physical library branches just yet, but we are online. Borrowing continues, as well as our BPL to go program. And we've been able to really, I think we have 30,000 new library cards issued since COVID started. So a lot of people have used our services. And if you haven't, you really should look online and see what we put online. It's a great resource for the city. Yesterday, we announced reopening of a couple pools in the city, one down the north end, which is open now. It started today. I think Steve can probably give an update on how that went today. It took a lot of coordination to open up the pools. We want to make sure it's safe. It's important for the community in the city that we reopen the pools safely. A lot of pools were open in the last couple of weeks, but in Boston, we wanted to make sure we get the right guidelines in place. We also, before we determined if we could reopen the pool safely, we wanted to analyze data, and we're using a lot of data. As I mentioned, the numbers, they might not seem like a lot, but when I talk about those numbers of the last 3 weeks, it's a 7-day process where we look back on the previous 7 days. So we're getting a flow. We're not doing it day by day. The reason for it, Monday, we had, Tuesday, we only had 4 positive cases from Monday. Today we're in I think 26. So doing a day by day analysis doesn't necessarily work. So we do a 7-day cumulative total. So when I talk about data, I'm generally based on 7 days. We also, with the loss of our college students in our area, as far as the pools go, we put a pause on lifeguard certification. We were struggling already to recruit certified lifeguards and staff our pools. The state has to deal with a similar issue, so we're working on that with beaches and pools. And I can go more into that in a little bit. With the pools, we don't have indoor showers. You can't use indoor. You have to be outdoor. You have to be prepared and dressed to go there. So any questions you have on the pools, you can let us know. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Questions about the fiscal 21 budget and how we're allocating budget for this year and potentially next year due to the impacts of COVID. We had to cut this year's budget, $65 million out of the budget right now. The state is also in joke, and probably talk about that in a little bit. They're not sure exactly what's going to happen there. They're still looking at the numbers, and they've lost a lot of revenue due to income tax and sales tax and meals tax and all the other taxes. So we're trying to navigate, and we're not just Boston and the state, but the entire Commonwealth. Different cities and towns are trying to navigate. But as far as the city goes, I think we've done a good job of not cutting essential services and not cutting programming that we have in the city of Boston. We've had 7 years of strong fiscal management, balanced budgets, AAA bond rating, and it's the highest in the city's history. When we submitted our budget in April for our 2021 budget, we cut $30 million from the budget. We're just beginning the feeling of COVID-19 and the effects that would have on our economy. When we resubmitted the budget in June after the city council had the hearings, we had to cut another $35 million out. So that totals a $65 million budget. Despite the loss in revenue, our budget total is $3.6 billion. We have, it's an increase from last year, about 119 is a modest increase. That's about 3.4% over fiscal 2020. And we're able to make real targeted investments in long-term programs and goals in education, in housing, public health. We had other investments we wanted to make, but we had to put some of them on hold. In this year's budget that was voted on, and I want to thank Councilor Edwards and any other city council that's on here for supporting the budget. $80 million into our schools. That's new spending. That's not to fill any gaps, and that's not about opening schools with COVID. That is new spending to push along Superintendent Casilius' plan on revitalizing our schools. We put a $16 million increase in there for affordable housing. We're doing the first ever city voucher program in the city. We're going to try and help low-income families create more opportunities for living. $13 million increase to public health. $3 million increase directly from the police budget, overtime budget, directly to address racial inequities that we've been talking about and you've been reading about and seeing. We're also excited to continue the investments in the North End. We're going to enhance the health and well-being of our residents in the community. Investments in Langone and Pupilo Park Playground, also Christopher Columbus Park are moving forward, and we're going to be continuing to make investments there. We're making progress in our plans to the North End Branch Library and designs for the North End Community Center. We're moving forward on those. They're in the planning stages. So again, it's a little different than the general budget because that's going to be in the capital side. So we're going to be making those investments as we move forward here. And at a time when other cities across the nation, quite honestly, and in the city are scaling back on their investments as a result of COVID, in Boston, we're doubling down on a lot of our different promises that we made for vital services. You know, I don't know how this pandemic is going to affect next year's budget process. That's really one of the things that I think a lot of us are concerned about, but we're going to be able to continue to put together a really fiscally strong, responsible, balanced budget that takes into account the current financial situation that we have as we move forward. I know the students and parents and teachers are anxious awaiting the plan for school this fall. The state has asked us to prepare a plan by the end of July. They've asked us for 3 options. We basically have put together those plans. One option is all in building starting in September. I don't see any circumstance how that's going to happen unless there's a vaccine between now and then. We will not be doing all in school learning. The second approach is all student learning remotely, and that's what we had to do from roughly March 17th through the end of the school year. Everything was online. Any parents on here, you know how it worked and how we did it. And the third option is a blended model. The BP, which means that we'll have some in-school learning and some remote learning. All of our plan, well, that plan is going to be parents, if they choose not to send their kid to school and they don't want to, they can opt out. So we want to make sure it's safe. The Boston Public School team is developing these plans. Our priority is going to be obviously on student safety, on teacher safety, staff, and the community. We want to make sure that when we send our kids back to school that they're safe. Tonight, as we speak, the superintendent is presenting at the school committee on the meeting about the progress we've made so far. Her and her team are engaging with families and teachers to understand their concerns and preferences. So nearly 1/3 of our families and 1/2 our students responded to the survey that we had put out there. And we're going to continue to monitor data and the science as we move forward to see what's safe for our kids and what's safe for our teachers and our community. We're also assessing the cost. The cost is going to be a little more here associated with additional preparation. What I mean by that is if your child takes a bus to school, the rules and regulations for school are going to be that you can only have 1 child per row and space between that child. So our buses won't have, I mean, some buses, they drive around, they're not full. Some are full, and we're going to have to really think about how do we space those out and add more buses. So we're going to be working on that. And we're worried also how we think about the staffing of our schools and how do we make sure we keep people safe and the technology that's going to be needed to be able to do both. This also is affecting every school district in the nation in the area that we're hoping that the federal government will step in with resources, you know, as we move forward. I know that person who's not president, Vice President Joe Biden, put forth a plan to reopen schools and add, I think, $38 billion to reopening schools. And we haven't seen a plan yet from the federal government as far as moving forward on that. We have about 6 weeks till we have opening day for school. So we're going to continue to let you know what the progress is and understanding where we are with that. So with that, I think there's other things I can talk about, but if you want me to stop and take some questions, I will. I think if that's what you want me to do. There's a whole bunch of other issues. I could talk all night about a whole bunch of things. Outdoor dining. I didn't talk about outdoor dining. I know it's going great. Everyone's thrilled with it down there. I heard there's no complaints with the outdoor dining at all. So I'm happy about that. Street sweeping is starting August 10th. We're going to be doing street sweeping for the next couple of weeks. We're going to be asking people to move their cars. We're not giving tickets out the first couple of weeks, but we are going to be ticketing starting August 10th. I don't want to do it, but I'm getting a lot of complaints about trash in the streets. So we're hearing a lot of that. Outdoor dining, we can go into that if you want. I'm only kidding about that. Article 80 process, we're launching that again with the BPDA. We're going to be doing a lot of Zoom calls and meetings. And then I'll stop there. I'll take questions.
So I opened up the mic, Chris Cook, Chris Osgood, and who else did I open? I opened somebody else on your staff. Catherine Burton, so they can answer questions. So we've got a bunch of questions on chat. First one, any chance the Mirabella pool can be kept open for an additional hour Monday to Friday so that those who work 9 to 5 can use it?
Not right now, but we'll look into it. We're trying to maintain it. Let's see how this week goes. And then once we see how the crowd is, we can always look and revisit everything. But we want to start it. I think it started today, so we'll see how we move forward. It's not a concrete no. It's just let us see how this week works.
Okay, I'm just going to kind of read through these.
Yeah, please.
Speaking out against the Trump administration sending federal agents to respond to Black Lives Matter protests, please continue to ensure that the agents stay out of Boston.
Yeah, that's a bad situation. I talked the mayor of Portland, Oregon, just real quickly on that one. Federal agents were sent in there to arrest people. The authorities in Portland and the authorities in Oregon didn't ask for any assistance from the federal government. They had about 52 days of protests. Some were violent, and they were saying it was starting to get nonviolent in the last several protests they've had. And then the federal authorities came in and they just randomly pulling people off the street. We don't need that. That's not who we are in America. I think if there's a need for help, assistance, you ask for it. And I don't think that they should just randomly sending people into cities like that.
Thank you. We've got 2 questions from folks about when the final decision will be made on the back to school plan.
It's going to be a fluid plan all the way right up until the end of school, right up to the beginning of school. So what we're going to be doing is really letting parents know that there are going to be real 2 options on the table. One is going to be an all online option. One is going to be an in-school option. And the reason why I say that, we don't know where we're going to be with the coronavirus in 2 weeks. We don't know if we're going to see an increase in the virus. What we've seen around the country, as you saw, some places shut down, like Florida, and then they reopened, and now they're seeing crazy numbers of coronavirus infections. Same with California. And California has some pretty stringent rules. So it's really going to be based off of what we do as individuals and how we can contain the virus. So my hope is that we're going to do some in-person schooling in September. But again, if our numbers are at too high of a percentage, and we haven't set the bar yet, but we will not send kids back to school.
Okay. Another question, when you start ticketing, will more parking spaces be available? Love the outdoor dining, but so many spaces have been taken that we anticipate headaches when street sweeping, ticketing, towing starts.
Yeah, we probably have to take a little different approach in the North End. And maybe what I'll do is, I don't know if Chris has looked into this already. We probably have to do a little different approach in the North End because the amount of outdoor dining that you have. You did lose seat spots. I think we're able to get some parking in other places, but I'm aware of that. And we'll make sure that that's resolved and answered before August 10th.
One quick note, if I can, just to build on what the mayor said, and John Romano, tell me if I have the number off, but as you know, 300 spaces were made available in the government center garage. I believe only roughly 100 of those have been taken so far. So there is additional capacity there if people are interested. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, but folks should reach out to John if that's an interest to them.
Thank you. And Mayor, this question for you too, Chris. Just speaking about the parking spaces and outdoor dining, do you think that if the success of this works well this year in a hopefully non-COVID summer next year, that you think that outdoor dining might be something the city would take a look at for some neighborhoods and for select licensees?
Defer to the mayor.
Oh, sorry, Chris.
Please go ahead.
I know people have different views of it. I actually think it's pretty exciting for Boston, and I think that it's kind of, it gives you a flair. A lot of European cities have dining like this, and I think that it's something that we should definitely look at long term. I think that, again, it's a little harder to say that in the North End because it's, your main street, if you call Hanover the main street going down the Hart, it's all outdoor dining for the most part. So I think that the answer is yes, I'd love to do that. But I think we have to look and see how it worked out for this year. And we're going to see for another 3 or 4 months here. So hopefully it works out well.
Okay, I have a question from Tom Schiavone, who's a parishioner at St. Leonard's Church, and I'm just going to read it to you. He's not able to make the call tonight. During the last North End online community meeting, which you attended, there was a brief discussion about the development of the former St. Leonard Rectory at 14 North Bennett Street. This has been a zoning expansion that both community civic groups, NEWRA and NEWNC, have jointly opposed. An impression may have been left that there were still active negotiations underway regarding modifications to the original plan submitted by the developer. The proposed installation of narrower balconies on the rear of the building did nothing to alleviate the visual and noise impact on the sacristy's windows of the main church altar, which is at very close range, as well as creating serious intrusion on the privacy of the elderly friars whose windows would be within feet of these balconies. It needs to be stressed that the North End community does not oppose the conversion of the rectory into a residential unit. It's the size and scale of the variance request that raises concerns. The Office of Neighborhood Services has not yet publicly disclosed its recommendations that will be forwarded to your office. Can you talk about the city's position on this issue and when a decision will be made?
I have not personally talked to anyone about it that I'm aware of. So what I'd ask is, John, come see me tomorrow on this and let's talk about it. Certainly the church's concerns are we're going to take up seriously. I don't think we've taken a position on, have we? No. So let me find, I don't have an answer for you on that one. I'll look into it.
Thanks very much. Any more questions?
Yeah, so as far as September move-ins are really big in the North End, and it's a really chaotic time of year. I guess the concern is surrounding parking with having like the outdoor dining going on with parking and trying to figure out how people are going to be moving in come September 1. So if you could just speak to that.
Yeah, I'm going to have a call this week with college universities. Some of them, I think some of them are rethinking if they're going to have college in September in person because of the large numbers of virus that's happening in Texas and other places. Chris, has anyone in ISD or have your office started to look at that? I know we're going to do staggered move-ins, I think, over weekends, so it's not all at one time like it usually is.
We are looking at sort of how to, as you exactly said, Mayor, sort of stagger sort of either time and location. The permitting, we've done some similar work in not more comprehensively in the North End and other places in the past. We can come back to you with a plan now in advance of September 1st.
Yeah, we're not going to it's not going to be like the past years where, you know, the freshmen through seniors all move back in one weekend and everyone's, you know, all over the place in the city. In my earlier calls with the schools, it's been, we have to stagger move-ins because first of all, social physical distancing is impossible in a situation like that. And as you know, and I know down the North End, people are parking on top of each other and throwing stuff out and moving stuff in. And it really makes it complicated in a normal situation. So we will come up with a stronger plan and work with you on it. And you're absolutely right because, you know, with Hanover Street and some of the other streets who've lost the parking spaces, it'll make it more complicated. But I'm not completely convinced at this moment, and this is off the record, any press on the thing, I'm not convinced that colleges come back the way they thought they would. You know, I think Harvard and MIT have already said no. Berkeley's announced they're not coming back. They're doing all online. And there's a bunch of other schools that are starting to rethink it because of the virus. These kids come from all over the country. And if you look at a map of the country, you know, 2/3 of the country is under siege right now with the virus. And for those kids to come back here, that means all that potential virus increase comes our way. We have to really have a conversation about that.
And just a separate question going into COVID a little bit here. Is there a plan to have free COVID and COVID antibody tests throughout the city? I mean, particularly in the North End, they have testing going on at the Nazaro Center without the need for insurance approval, even if they're symptom free. So if people would like to antibody tests.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, fine.
That has to be, that'll have to be a change. We'll have to figure out how to pay for it. Right now, there's no plan for it. I think that we've talked to the Department of Public Health on a statewide level about that. The antibody test is expensive. And if you don't have symptoms, you can't, if you have some types of symptoms, you can get a COVID test free in some of our health centers, but we're trying to figure out how do you pay for it. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of tests potentially that would have to be given out, but that has not been addressed yet.
Another question. Mayor, thank you in advance for the extra trash pickup. That was one of our comments. And then to John Romano, when you meet about the 14 North Bennett project, know that all the abutters are opposed and support the St. Leonard's congregation in opposing this.
That's good to know.
Okay. Any other questions for the mayor? Pop them into chat or send me a text or an email. We got another email from someone. Mr. Mayor, I think you are doing an awesome job leading us.
That's the best email of the night. Thank you for that.
a nice way to end your talk to us.
Yeah, let me just, before I go, I know I talked in the beginning, and I know sometimes, you know, this isn't meant to pat each other on the back, but I do want to thank, Joe Boncory for his work in the state Senate. You know, it's great to have the chairman of transportation representing us in the city, and being able to have that connection. And Aaron's work in Ways and Means is really, really important as well, and what he's doing. And Councilor Edwards, you know, we had a tough end of session, if you will, around the budget, and there was a lot of investments in that budget that Lydia fought for. That was really important for the city of Boston, and it doesn't always get highlighted. But $3.4 billion budget. We had money in there for homeless services. We had money in there for housing services. We had money in there for our park system and all the different systems. And I just want to thank her because, you know, she's been a great ally in making sure that we take care of the most vulnerable people. And not everyone, I mean, I'm not saying anyone on this call, but, you know, we're in this business together to try and move our city and our state forward. And during COVID, it really has put a spotlight on a lot of inequities in our city. And we knew it was there before, but we've seen even more. We've served over 2 million meals to our kids and our families, to our senior citizens. We had to give out Chromebooks to families that didn't have basic technology. They didn't have hotspots, and we're able to get those hotspots done. We're able to make additional investments in our schools, and all of that is in this year's budget. And we also took $12 million from the police overtime budget and reinvested it in programming on trauma and youth programs. And you've all seen and heard and read. And today we've had 2 shootings this afternoon in Roxbury. We've seen an uptick in the violence in the city. And the thing that it always concerns me to see uptick in violence, but what we've seen is younger people. Today, 2 teenagers. Yesterday, 2 teenagers were killed. You know, in the last 12 days, we've had maybe higher than this, but 7 teenagers shot, 4 died. And in that budget also was money for public safety, not on the police side, but on the trauma side. And so I just want to thank the councilor for her support and advocacy on that and work on it. I want to thank all the folks in this call. This is a great neighborhood. I love this neighborhood. And I want to thank you for everything that you've done and continue to do. And anything we can do to be helpful, we are. And I promise, tell Father, I will look into St. Leonard's first thing in the morning.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much. No other questions? John Romano provided his email address in case anybody has any questions. It's in the chat, or you can email Brett or I and we can get you in touch with him. Thank you. Any other questions?